Good day, everyone, and welcome to this QC Copper and Gold webinar on the Opemiska project, which coincides with the end of our current drilling program. My name is Charles Beaudry, and I am a Director and Vice President for Exploration for QC Copper and Gold. In this webinar, there will be a number of forward-looking statements that will be made on the basis of our expectations and projections, some or all of which may not materialize for various reasons out of our control. Investors should be aware that exploration is a high-risk, high-reward activity and behave accordingly. In this presentation, we will summarize why we think that copper and our project in particular in Chapet are very good business opportunities. I will first summarize what the project is, the work we did to compile all the mining data and confirmation results from our 2019 drill program, followed by our reasoning behind our current drilling campaign and initial results from our logging and assaying program. Then we will look at what these results mean for the project and where we see the upside possibilities in relation to what we already know from the historical mine work. When we will then finish with the next steps, the timelines, and the deliverables required to advance the Opemiska project. Why copper, you may say? Copper has had a good run recently, and we all know about the demand side of copper, how growth in infrastructure in the developing world creates an insatiable demand for copper to move electricity around, but also how the greening of the world's economy will require a lot more copper. No, I want to discuss the production side. Most of the copper in the world is produced from porphyry copper deposits, which on the aggregate run with grades of about 0.3 to 0.4% copper. Yes, the more profitable porphyries are better than this, but it is the average, and that is what determines the market. In the last 30 years, the increase in production of copper has come mostly from existing mines through the lowering of cutoff grades and large brownfield investments to expand production. However, in the last 10 years, the cutoff grades on average has dropped lower than the average grade of the deposits, in the range of 0.2 to 0.3% copper. This is not sustainable because once you drop below the average grade, the amount of additional metal you can derive by lowering your cutoff grade decreases very rapidly to the point where no amount of capital can significantly increase production. You can see this here on the diagram. Once we get below the average grade, the amount of metal that you can derive decreases quite rapidly. This is the point. This is where the industry finds itself today. It's the law of diminishing returns. On the other hand, Opemiska is not a porphyry deposit, and its average grade is much higher than 0.4 copper. The reason for this is simply that the underground mines had a cutoff grade of 1.5% copper, and a lot of lower grade material was left in the wall rocks as disseminated mineralization surrounding the mined veins. Moreover, underground mining required that some pillars be left behind for stability, as well as crown or surface pillars to avoid having open holes all over the place. They also happened to build the mill on top of some veins and had to leave quite thick crown pillars. All this material can be mined in an open pit. Why Chapet-Chibougamau? The small community of Chapet, located about 40 kilometers west of the regional center of Chibougamau, was built on the old Springer and Perry mines, which were closed in 1991, and nowadays the community lives off forestry, a cogeneration power plant, and a sizable greenhouse complex that uses the excess heat from the power plant, plus a number of smaller businesses that serve these industries. For the rest, local residents travel to Chibougamau daily to work or are retired and on pensions. However, a lot of younger folk were forced over the years to move away for work, and many of those would certainly like to return if opportunities for work were present. In addition, the property is located on the traditional lands of the Cree First Nation, and they too seek opportunities for their young folk. It's safe to say that the local population is quite favorable to the development of a new mine in Chapet, even if that means there would be a pit next door to town. We are actively engaging with the local and First Nation communities to ensure we have consent from all stakeholders. We have contracts with Cree businesses to support our exploration activities. We can name Mikan Drilling, which is a joint venture between the local Cree First Nation and Chibougamau Diamond Drilling, and Natives Exploration, which provide labor for line cutting, slashing, and core processing. We are also big customers of the local businesses in Chapet for all the materials we need for the project. QC Copper and Gold is a major mineral rights holder in the Chapet-Chibougamau mining camp. We have 4 properties in the area that cover 4 historical mines, and we also have a 50% interest in an NI 43-101 compliant mineral resource at Roger, which Soquem owns the other 50%. The total project covers over 14,355 hectares. We have enough real estate so that if we are successful, we will have room to build a mine and to conduct brownfields exploration. This map shows one of the most important advantages of the Opemiska project: infrastructure. In addition to the local workforce mentioned earlier, the area is endowed with highways and numerous forestry roads, a major rail line to Quebec City, massive power lines coming down directly from James Bay, and a proactive government that is motivated to develop the north, as witnessed with Quebec's Plan Nord. In addition, Chapet is effectively a brownfields environment, which should be very helpful to facilitate permitting and construction. And once we produce a copper concentrate, we will have options on where to send it for processing. This slide tells the story. Together, the 4 mines in Chapet produced nearly 24 million tons of ore at an average grade of 2.14% copper and almost 1 gram per ton gold. This represents about 1.2 billion pounds of copper, or a third of the production, the historical production in the Chapet-Chibougamau camp, and about 500,000 ounces of gold. Although there are no current mineral resources in these old mines, studies conducted in 2013 and 14 by RPA outlined conceptual exploration targets on Springer and Perry that range in grade from 1 to 1.5% copper, with tonnages that could easily be mined from surface in an open pit. This was the starting point of our project. We figured that the data supported the notion that we could find enough low-grade mineralization above a realistic cutoff grade to make a go with the project. But first, we needed to confirm our hypothesis by digitizing all the historical data we could find and conduct a confirmatory drill program while we waited for the copper markets to return in our favor. So we compiled over 15,000 diamond drill holes representing over 800,000 meters that were drilled by Falconbridge Copper between the discovery of the deposits in 1930s and closing of the mine in 1991. This included over 15,000 assays, 30% of which also had gold assays. We digitized all the veins, stopes, and drifts from the old mines and converted everything to metric and built volumetric solids. We built additional wireframes around the low-grade mineralized halos around the veins, and we combined all this information in a 3D mining software in order to prepare the project for its maiden mineral resource estimate. We felt from the start that the opportunity here is to redefine the project as an open pit. Although we could crunch the numbers, and we have, none of that work could be published because we could not validate the historical mine assays. Since there was no core left over from the mine, the only way to validate that drilling is to twin a fairly large number of holes to compare the modern drill results with the historical mine holes for location and thickness of mineralized zones, as well as the tenor of these zones. Initial work to this effect was undertaken in the 2019 drill program, which confirmed 12 long intersections of mineralized rock between the veins, as well as better than expected mineralization in the hinge zone of the Springer mine and the southeast zone. It also confirmed that around the old mill, the crown pillars are much thicker than elsewhere. After the 2019 drill program, we ran the numbers again with an independent QP, and although we still did not have a compliant mineral resource, it became obvious to us that Opemiska is a going concern, and this allowed us to move forward with confidence to this phase we just did now, which we expect will lead to a NI 43-101 mineral resource that will show through a preliminary economic analysis that an open pit mining project on the Springer and Perry mines could be economic. To this end, we focused our drilling on twinning many historical surface mine holes in order to validate the mine assays. In 2019, we also did twin a number of historical holes, and we found that historical assays were very similar to our own. However, an important point, and this is an important point that I make, we frequently make, is that the mine holes, particularly those drilled prior to mining, which started in '53, were severely undersampled between the veins, so that our drilling is also meant to provide infill assays between these veins. The program was also meant to test for mineralization in the saddle zone between the two optimized pits modeled in the fall of 2020. Any significant mineralization here will allow us to deepen the pit on both zones and reduce the strip ratio. Holes were also targeted on the periphery of the model pit, particularly toward the eastern veins, which could add additional tons to the pit. Finally, we planned some 12 holes for about 3,770 meters on the adjacent Cook-Robitaille property to test various copper-gold targets. The drill program is complete now with a total of 20,195 meters in 78 holes on Opemiska and 12 on Cook-Robitaille. Over 11,400 samples of core have been collected, 8,800 of which have been shipped to the lab, and 3,600 sample results have been received. Turnaround times are running at about 4 to 6 weeks. We expect the last batch to be shipped around mid-June and the last results to arrive around mid to late July. The resource estimate should be ready in 2 to 3 weeks after we receive the last results. Additional work includes 2 metallurgical samples now being collected, a televiewer program to collect 3D structural measurements, and a LIDAR survey to get a super accurate topo map. The NI 43-101 report itself has been started and should be completed shortly after publication of the resource estimate. The more significant intersections are plotted on this map, and I refer you to the latest news release of 12th of May 2021 for a list of sections showing the assay results. These results are very consistent with results obtained in 2019. We are reporting here 9 holes out of about 16 for which partial or complete results have been received. Better intersections include 0.65% copper equivalent over 55.5 meters, 0.56% copper equivalent over 53.5 meters, and 0.94% copper equivalent over 35 meters. None of the results published in this program to date include pillars. I want to make an important point here regarding the mineralization at Opemiska. It is a combination of background mineralization, which is in the range of 0.4 to 0.6% copper equivalent, close to twice the cutoff grade, and the veins which grade easily 5 to 10 times the background. The average mine grade was about 2.2% copper, but in the early days, the grades were much higher than this. This was the vein grade. We have the pillars left over from this mining, as well as smaller veins that were too narrow to mine, as the mine required a minimum of 1.5% copper over 5 feet in width to mine. So when we add these pillars to the background, the average grade increases significantly according to our internal estimates. The next slides show some nice core shots of holes for which assays are pending. In 2 cases, the veins were not mined and the holes are outside our model pit. Slide 16. This is photos of hole 38. This hole contains semi-continuous mineralization between 12 and 196 meters with occasional magnetite, quartz, pyrite, calcopyrite veinlets, typically with green chloride selvages. The hole intersected between vein number 3 and vein number 20 in the vicinity of the mill and should have a nice thick crown pillar. Assays are pending. Photos of hole 51. This pretty spectacular calcopyrite mineralization is the middle part of a 102-meter interval of semi-continuous disseminated mineralization. The greatest part of this is that it is not in an area of mine veins. In fact, it is in the saddle zone, which was undersampled by the mine for some reason, which explained why there is a saddle in the first place, because the mine holes in the vicinity were not assayed for copper. It is not certain what orientation these veins have, but the hole will be surveyed with the televiewer. Assays are pending here also. Slide 18. Photo of hole 69. This interval of massive calcopyrite is part of a semi-continuous mineralized zone from 28 to 142 meters. Interestingly, there are no stopes in this area immediately east of the Perry pit, and this will certainly expand the pit laterally and downward. We think this could be linked to the mineralization in the eastern veins, which could add a major extension to the Perry pit towards the east. In the next 2 slides, I will try to illustrate our results to date, projected in 3D inside the model pit. This shows the assays from the holes we have published. Holes 24, 26, and 27 in particular were drilled in the mill zone, but below the pillars. All 3 holes bottomed out in stopes. This slide shows the visual estimates of calcopyrite, and although the estimates are much less precise, it still reflects the numbers in the assays as shown in holes 26 and 27 in the previous slide. More importantly, however, is the distribution of calcopyrite we are seeing in the saddle zone. This has the potential to significantly improve the numbers over what we obtained last fall in the model pit. Remember that for every vertical meter of saddle we can move from waste to ore is a meter more that we can mine at the bottom of the pits. This is very good news. The photo on the left here is the collar of the first hole we drilled this season. It's hole number 24 and is located in the industrial park. It's the area of the old mill, and this is where we have thick crown pillars. On the right is the newly constructed core shack, which is set up with 3 logging tables and 2 diamond saws. This can support up to 3 drills on 2 shifts per day. To keep costs down and drilling rate high, we chose not to try to traverse the stopes except where it was clearly easy to do so. For our maiden resource, this makes a lot of sense. But if the project moves on to the next phase, which is a preliminary feasibility study, we will have to drill the footwall of the veins. Fortunately, we left the casing in all the holes we could, and we can go back down to extend the holes through the existing stopes, or in some cases, ring the holes with HQ and then telescope down to NQ and then BQ according to our needs. However, this will be a lot slower and a lot more expensive, which undoubtedly will be justified by the results of the preliminary economic analysis expected shortly after the main resource estimate. This photograph you see is from Gold Candles project at Kerr Addison. This is actually what they did, and we've been discussing with some of the people involved with that project that are advising us on how to proceed with this. Our core focus, or in conclusion, we remain laser focused on delivering a pit-constrained mineral resource and PEA for the Springer and Perry mines. Between the background grade we are seeing in the drilling between the veins and the pillars left behind, we are confident we will be getting a robust estimate in line with our internal numbers we obtained last fall. There's no guarantee, but on the other hand, everything we have seen in this drill program supports our expectations. So what's next? A maiden resource during the summer and a PEA by the end of the year. Then, if we get the results we're hoping for, we will enter the feasibility phase. This project may be fast-tracked because we are in a brownfields environment, we have excellent infrastructure, we are in a copper bull market that should last for several years, and we have local communities which are highly supportive of our project. Finally, we thank you very much for your attention and remind you that you can contact me directly if you have any questions. Thank you and have a good day.